On today's show, we have Oliver Gale, the CEO of Panther Protocol. Panther is a privacy protocol that connects blockchains to restore privacy in Web3 and DeFi and provides financial institutions a clear path to compliantly participate in digital asset markets. Why don't you break down for the audience a little bit about yourself and what was the purpose of starting Panther Protocol?
Panther started in the summer of 2020 with Dr. Anish Mohammed and myself. He is the other co-founder and CTO of the project. So we started looking at, this question of, well, what's the opportunity if we were to build a zero knowledge prime brokerage? What does that look like versus what if we were to build infrastructure which would support that type of use case? And that was the genesis of Panther, was this idea of, well, what if we build a privacy-centric protocol that allows retail users and institutions to have true privacy and interact with Web3 and do that in a multi-chain fashion and do it without introducing extra risks, such as like synthetic assets and so forth. And so two things. One is I'm very interested in monetary systems and how to sort of create the tools that intersect with regulators and compliance and also unstoppable freedom-centric rights of the individual, that sort of counterbalancing of forces to create a better, safer world. So the idea of being able to take an asset and wrap it as what we call a zero asset, which is one-to-one collateralized, and then that zero asset has the properties of privacy imbued within it and can be used across various blockchains and Web3 generally, is a powerful one. And it captured our imaginations, and we thought it would be worth our time to begin building it.
Nice. And so what do you guys come into, what is the initial thing that you guys are focusing on solving in the first version?
Yeah, so we're deploying something called a multi-asset shielded pool. What it does is it allows a user, we're deploying it on Polygon first, so that's the MVP. Users can take their tokens, bridge them from Ethereum over to Polygon, wrap them within the Panther protocol as Z assets. So if you took, for example, ETH or Matic, you would have ZETH or ZMatic. That would sit within the shielded pool, and users within the shielded pool can transact with each other privately. They can engage in basic swaps between one another inside the shielded pool, benefiting from privacy throughout that transaction. The reason it's called a multi-asset shielded pool is because unlike other shielded pool implementations, and so Tornado Cash would be an example of one, the multi-asset shielded pool allows you to have privacy for multiple different asset types. So generally, when you're using a shielded pool, you need to have a sufficiently large anonymity set to provide a reasonable level of privacy. What our brilliant team has figured out how to do is allow one asset type to provide privacy towards another asset type. So if I have, say, 1,000 ETH in a pool, and then I have one DAI, under normal circumstances, the DAI holder is not really benefiting from much privacy because there's only one DAI in the pool. The anonymity set's not large enough. Panther's multi-asset shielded pools allow the liquidity of the ETH also to provide privacy to the DAI and vice versa. And so we see that as being something that will provide privacy across the long tail of assets in the blockchain.
All right, for everyone tuning in and listening here, maybe break down in simple terms some different ways in which there's benefits to joining these shielded pools that people might not even be thinking about.
Yeah, so I mean, at the core, like if you're just going from what principles do you adhere to, is I don't want to be surveyed. I want my data and my information to be mine unless I have good reason to share it with someone else. There's a lot of value which corporations today in Web2 extract from users, and they make trillions collectively off of user data. And it creates a huge asymmetry in our societies. And really and truly, that data should belong to the individual, does belong to the individual, actually. And the user should be able to control how it's used, whether it's commercially used or given away or kept. So from the first principles of what values are important for our society, as we spend more and more time attached to digital economies, to our phone, to the metaverse in whatever form you're using it. It's a huge issue. It's an existential issue centered around freedom. So, there's good reason to make your transactions private on the basis of, I want to live in a fair, free world. Getting more specifically into it, alpha preservation is a major use case for using privacy tools. You might be a retail trader or you might be an institution. If you're transacting across the blockchain ecosystem, your portfolio construction, the timing of your transactions, your counterparties, that reveals a lot of information about you, and it undermines and erodes your competitive edge. So we view the shielded pool as like, it's a 101 requirement. If you're an institution and you're looking at the yields in DeFi and the growth and the opportunity in DeFi, in the same way that compliance is a must-tick checkbox when it comes to institutions getting into DeFi, once you go past the risk, when you get to the commercial and strategic secret sauce component of your business, protecting your IP, protecting your alpha is another must-tick checkbox. So those are like the two major use cases for this.
I guess we might as well roll into how you guys are structured and the team that is driving the success of the project and how you guys are kind of executing that roadmap.
So we're structured out of Gibraltar right now. Panther Foundation is in Gibraltar. Panther Ventures is the development arm of the project. That's where everyone is contracted and building the protocol. We received a grant from the protocol to build it and raised 32 million in 2021 to build the protocol over the next few years. So we're adequately funded. The team is about 40 people. Panther's been fully decentralized from day one. Like even we built a protocol to launch Panther because we didn't want to be the ones that are acting as the central launcher of the protocol. So LaunchDAO, Panther was launched by LaunchDAO. And so when it comes to upgrading the protocol, there's a proposal submission onto forums as with other DAOs, and then it's voted on. So far, our voting has been heavily skewed in favor of the proposals that our team have released, so like 95+%, and very high voting turnout as well. So when we make amendments to rewards pools or launch new features or correct bugs or etc., all of that's done through this decentralized process.
Do you think there's going to be two sides here in the future where it's just going to be kind of like, we'll call it the unregulated markets and then the regulated markets, and different protocols will handle different sides?
Totally. In the early 90s, things like SSL encryption were extremely high on the red list and agenda of organizations like the FBI for the fact that they considered this type of encryption to be a way for people to use the internet privately. To make that long story short, SSL encryption, strong encryption, was open source. The internet allowed it to proliferate. It became a standard internationally and just became widely adopted. Not only that, it was recognized that being able to protect things like transactions and transaction data was not only good for commerce, but it was necessary. And so when you are transacting or say checking out on a website today, you use SSL encryption. When you go to almost any website, it has the lockbox in the corner. SSL encryption is a standard. When you go to a website and it doesn't have that in place, you get a warning, go back to safety. So, you combine, and this is the whole cypherpunk movement, but you combine privacy technologies with the internet and its ability to proliferate, and people use these technologies to protect themselves and to protect their communities. And the position of your regulators and your authorities shifts because they recognize two things. One, unstoppable forces can't be stopped. And two, privacy is in everyone's best interest. And so you establish new standards which improve people's rights and, I would say, standard of living as a Web3 citizen.